Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Milrad. I'm the founder of Movie Karma, and we're the nonprofit organization that created our podcast here called Rewriting Hollywood. I'm sure, as many of you know, focuses on inclusion, equity, representation, and social impact through the power of storytelling. We've been really fortunate over the last several weeks to highlight Oscar-eligible short filmmakers from around the world, and it's part of our continuing series. And we have another extremely talented and accomplished Oscar-eligible filmmaker and project to highlight today. And it's a really powerful film. It's called Like the Ones I Used to Know. It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. It's now Oscar qualifying and will be eligible for the 2022 Academy Awards. Our guest today and the person behind this fascinating project is the writer-director Annie St-Pierre, who's joining us from Montreal. Really excited to talk about this project, which focuses on a father who goes to his former in-laws' house to collect his children on Christmas Eve. So before we dive into that, Annie, thank you so much for being on the show. Really excited to have you on.
It's a pleasure, Jared. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, glad to have you on. So Annie, you have a fascinating background yourself. So before we dive into the film, I'd love to start there. You've worn a number of hats in the industry: producer, obviously writer, director. I'm curious, was this a path that you always wanted to go down, or was there a specific moment that you started to think about going into film?
No, actually, I think that since I'm really young, um, I'm just going with the inspiration. So that's the same thing that just happened with the production thing, or doing documentary and then doing fiction, and sometimes playing in the film of some friends. Or I even did the casting direction for the last film of Monia Chokri, who will be premiere in Sundance in next
Oh,
Sundance.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Hmm.
but it's just a matter of, yeah, where I feel called, where my mind and my spirit and my heart feel called. And I don't have any real plans. So I just want to be inspired.
Fascinating. That's a good way to go through life, to just want to be inspired. Did you, was there a mentor? Was there someone that really inspired you at a younger age and get you to think about, okay, this is what I might want to do something in film? Or did you have people that you looked up to, like certain directors or writers that you wanted to be like?
Well, it took me a while to um, be, I don't know, to meet some people that really inspired me, because I come from a little town from the countryside of Quebec, and there was not a lot of cinema d'auteur, or I was not able to identify myself to some kind of cinema. I was just watching film that were on TV, I guess, and my parents were not in artistic field or nothing like that. So I think that I was more inspired by telling stories, which like all my family were really good at. My uncles are all really funny, and my father is, as you can see with my film, still a muse.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I mean, it's
yeah,
someone you take for kind of inspiration
yeah.
and
He's
yeah.
really poetic, really
Mm-hmm.
sensible. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that was the first point of how I wanted to be in cinema. And then when I was 17, I decided that I wanted to study that, but I was totally naive, and I didn't know anything about cinema. So I left my hometown, and I moved to Montreal. It was 5 hours of car from
Wow.
a little place, and I learned year after year a little more about cinema. And then I think that my first real crush on a director's work was with Pierre Perrault, which is a really well-known documentary director here. He was the first director from Canada to go to Cannes, and
Mm.
he was filming just people around him, people in small villages, but in a very cinematographic way. It was not like the documentaries that I was used to see. And yeah, and it just gave me the idea that I could do the same, that I could be able to tell some story about what I know. And yeah, and with that, like, it began, and I put the, I don't know if it's an expression that works in English, but I have my little toes in the lake of cinema, and then yeah,
Sure.
I
Yeah,
dive.
we have that one, dipping your toes in the
Yeah.
water. Trying to. That was my next question for you, Annie, which was, how did you start tinkering yourself or experimenting with this form, this media of cinema? Did you start to record your friends, or have do little short films, or like what, or start writing? What was the beginning like for you?
Well, me and my sister asked for a camera when we were young, when I was like 10 years old, to my mother, and it was like a huge huge gift that she could give to us. And I remember that we asked her, and we never thought that she would buy it for real, but she did. So I filmed a lot, really a lot, when I was young. I brought my camera to the high school, and me and my sister were filming every party. Like, we have some crazy little memories about poor teenager puking in some parties. We were not like
Oh my
curating.
God.
Yeah, we were really
Yeah.
good curator at that time. But yeah, we filmed a lot and all kind of
Take what
things.
you can get.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
everything. and and yes, it was just it was just instinct. And after, when I went back to the school, to the university, it was in cinema, so I learned a little bit more there. But it was, you know in school, I think that you sometimes afraid of doing mistakes, so it was not like the time where I experiment the most, I would say.
Hmm.
But then I did the first film at the end of this scholarship, and then it went to cinema. So I had the opportunity to do another one and another one, and then I also did a lot of behind the scenes for um, I would say big production, but from here in Quebec, so maybe medium
Sure.
productions.
Sure. Yeah. That's cool.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I always had some carte blanche,
Oh,
some
like
I,
opportunity to.
yeah,
Mhm.
I could do
Yeah.
whatever I want. A
Mhm.
documentary about the making of the making of the film that I was on. So I've learned a lot on being on set with some really experienced directors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think that it yeah, it's sort of what
Mm.
helps me to learn a little bit more
Mm.
about the cinema.
And what do you think, any, like, being on sets and having training in cinema, and being around people who are doing this craft, like, what do you think are some of the things that you have learned that you've maybe adopted into your craft?
I think that um, the la certitude, I don't know how to say that in English, but something
Mm.
that I really believe in, that was true on every set that I was
Mm.
on, is that everyone has his own way to create, and it's the only way it can be good. So the trick was not to try to do something like another one. I just had to be convinced that I had my own way to do it. And it took me a long time to do a fiction film because I
Yeah.
I was kind of afraid of doing some scene that would sound false. That was my uh, biggest scaring
It kind of
fear.
a
Fear.
frightening moment. Yeah, a scary
Yeah,
moment. Huh.
that was my
Yeah.
biggest fear. So I prefer to do documentary because there's less risk that people will sound false or but when I was convinced that I would find my own way to create the scene that I want on a set, I I did it, and yeah, it was okay. I think it was.
Yeah. That's no, I mean, obviously it's more than you've gotten to be in a place that's more than okay, which is exciting. But you make a good point there, that I think early stage artists we tend to imitate our idols or imitate people that mentored us, because we don't know anything else, and we don't yet maybe know our own voice. Then we slowly start to figure out that there kind of are no rules, and it's an art. So was that your process, it sounds like?
Yeah, but mm, that's the thing. I wasn't able to find someone that I really wanted to do like.
No, interesting, to imitate or to be like,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah.
Um. So yeah, I think that I was just admiring how they were able to find their own way to do it, and every time they were doing something differently, that was what interested me. And I'm still really inspired when I go on the set of Matthew Rankin or Monia Chokri or Denis Coté, the filmmaker that I produced in the last years, because they are so free. They I could do any task for them just for the total
Yeah, opportunity.
pleasure of seeing them
Hmm.
create, so with a total freedom. It's just every time I
Mm.
see that, it gives me some courage to do the same.
Yeah, that's really cool. You can be around those people, and that it has an impact on you. Let's talk a little bit about your film, which, as I said at the top, is now Oscar eligible. It's called Like the Ones I Used to Know, and it, as you mentioned, sort of touches on the harsh realities of separated families, strictly during the holidays, which we're now in the holiday season as we talk today. Tell us a little bit about the genesis or the origin of this project, Annie, and how did you? Was this from a personal place, or how did you start to how did the narrative start to come together?
Well, I wrote this script a long time ago, 13 years ago. Um, and the
Uh,
first idea I had, I talked with a friend also from a divorced family, Daniel Schachter, who is a brilliant filmmaker. And we were talking about it, and we wrote the first draft together, but it was really different. But it was about yeah, a father who has to come to take his children the year after the divorce during Christmas Eve. And
right.
because we both experienced that like our father had to come to take us, and just this idea of splitting Christmas in two, it just it sounds so ridiculous now that we had some years of recul. Like we have some years to be able to have a
Yeah, times
distance
apart. Right. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
see a little more like, oh my god, that was not the best thing to do. And I don't think that divorced parents now still do that, because
Mm.
we have a little more experience in what is a divorce. And but yeah, just that, it seems for me like some really it makes banality and traumatism. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found that really interesting. And I also thought that Christmas is so revealing of some family links, and it's also really linked with childhood. So like there's the childhood when you still believe in Santa, and there's
Sure. Right.
the following childhood, which is
Hmm.
more mature when you no more believe in Santa.
Right.
And I thought that
Right.
all this um, could be a good. I'm sorry, my
Okay,
English.
well, it's almost like it's I don't know if this is what you're going for, but almost like there's a yeah, there's a before and after, and there's a symbolism, I think, a weight to that too, of how each period
Yeah,
plays out. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I wanted to talk about this relation between a daughter and a father, and the moment like that almost every kid's experience when you see one of your parents, maybe your mother, but for me it was my father, um, being no more powerful, being
Mm,
vulnerable, and then you have to leave a certain kind of naive childhood to be more mature and to have some empathy.
right.
And that is, yeah, that is a film about the birth of empathy. And I
Mm,
used Christmas
mm,
talk about it. It was not that I wanted to do a film about Christmas.
mm.
Yeah.
It was a tool. It was a tool to do that. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm sure many of us watching the film will remember our own childhoods. I mean, I was reminded my parents divorced, of course, as well, um, as did millions of other parents. Um, and I think what's fascinating is it does bring you back. I mean, to those times, whether you had to split your holiday season, or in my case, dad or whoever it would be, whichever parent would come to visit, and then you would have, like in my case, it was like a Saturday lunch, and then it was sort of like it was over, right? And so that idea of also having limited time with one parent, or sometimes both parents, because you're splitting that time. So like, was that part of your thinking too, just how this bifurcation, these limitations on the time that kids get in these situations with each parent?
Yeah, yeah, and also the duality that it creates in them, because you like when your parents are separate, um, you're not exactly the same kid with one and another, and you also
Sure.
become a little the second part of the parents, which is not which is alone, which is single. Like you became also a protector. You have to be aware of how we feel, and it's not the like a normal childhood, even if I don't believe in normal. And I don't think that
Right.
it's something bad. Like I for me this film is like a normal tragedy. It's something that makes you grow. It's not something that is awful and oh my god,
Hmm.
poor little girl. I don't see it like that. I see that it's also, yeah, an occasion of learning empathy and be more mature and more and to evaluate, and
Hmm.
as well for the little girl than for the father. Actually, yeah, it's my parents are separate, and I'm quite happy that I had to
Hmm.
learn so many things when I was young about the others, about their feelings, and not being always like conscious just about myself.
It's true. It does make you grow up, quickly, in a sense, doesn't it? I mean, any type of childhood disruption or trauma, it really does make you grow up. And divorce is that, it is, for better for worse, is that thing. I know my mom would always talk about, well, and my parents, unfortunately, my parents became friends after the divorce, within a few years, all the way until the end of my dad's life. But it was interesting that, in my case, my mom would always talk about, well, for the sake of the kids, we divorced, because we didn't want to, at least from her perspective, she didn't want to have constant arguments and disruption. And I don't know if that was your experience, but I think that's an also fascinating part of it too, that there's trauma and divorce, but it's maybe not as bad as what it could have been if the parents stayed together.
Totally, yeah, totally.
Mm,
And as we also become older. Become older, is that the, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, grow older. Yeah.
we can also understand better the position of the father, because when I wrote the first draft of that, I was younger, and I felt closer to the little girl. But
Right.
then when I rewrite it, almost 10 years after, I I felt closer to the dad, because I know what is it um to be separate and to stop
Mm,
to be a family that you love, that was the family of your ex-boyfriend, or like
right.
you experience all that. So I think that our parents were just humans, and they did some kind of uh, awkward things sometimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
But
making decisions, right? Making tough decisions in a difficult world. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, but it's certainly a film about the the profondeur, like all those links are um, deep and important,
Mm,
and precious, and not about our our parent were bad.
mm. Right. Yeah. And I think that's interesting. It's often how it was portrayed, at least in the United States, that I would say, at least from my generation, and probably even before, as you kind of alluded to, since the dawn of where divorce was, in the 1950s and 40s, it was sort of this taboo thing that you weren't allowed to do even. That idea of no fault divorce started to emerge later, where women especially could finally say, like, let's just end it. We don't need to go to court and show who messed this up. Like, let's just move on. So the idea of divorce, the notion of divorce, and its role in society has evolved too, hasn't it?
Totally, yeah, totally.
Mm.
And yeah, and I think that it's actually, I believe that it's a great thing that people can just split, because
Mm.
like the goal of life is to try to be the best as we can, and to be the more happy that we can, and to make the other one happy too. So if it's not a good relation, you just have to try to makes it evaluate in another way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And the idea that it could, which we see in the film too, that there's hope afterwards too. Like, there doesn't have to always be. I think sometimes how divorce is portrayed in film is that it's always extremely nasty and vitriolic and negative, but there's hope there, right? I mean, if depending on how the parents handle it and the family handles it, there's a way in which it can be amicable, and there could still be a life afterwards, even if there are some challenges with physical location and so forth.
Yeah, and I think like the what stays after the film, and what is always in my mind, it's that there's no black or white situation. you know it's not a beautiful Christmas, but it's not so bad. And there's just, I think, like when Julie, the little girl, is, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but at the end, like you can feel that she she's not the protected child that she could have
Mm,
been, if
mhm.
if we compare to her cousins, or but
Right.
still, like, there's something to learn about it, and she has a good relation with her father, even if she will be bored when they will arrive at home, or I don't know.
Sure.
There's black or white. I'm more
Yeah.
I like, I have more, I prefer sweet and sour sauce than
Mm,
barbecue or honey.
mm. That's fascinating. Yeah, I know that kind of, that muddling, that kind of those gray areas that are really fascinating. And I think that's true. It does kind of, back to that idea you shared earlier of that notion of when kids believe in Santa Claus. It's kind of a similar, I mean, I remember feeling a similar thing with my parents' divorce, because I was about 8. It was kind of right on that cusp of when Santa Claus also became unreal. It was the same time for me that this idea of a nuclear family, happier ever after, you know, a mom and a dad, also broke when my parents divorced. And so I wonder if that's you're getting at too, this idea that this shattering of kids kind of perceived like idyllic, you know, utopian reality, that the world isn't quite like that. And so in a way, it sort of teaches a bit of resiliency. I mean, I would argue in kids.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly that. And
Mm.
like the way, you know, when Santa arrived and she's not able to see Santa anymore, she just sees like her uncle or
Right.
drunk uncle Gilbert.
Right.
She will never dream
Right.
about
Mm.
magical things.
Right.
She just she grow.
You grow and you try to find places maybe later in life to find that magic in other ways, but that's fascinating. Mm.
Yeah, but also life is like life has his own magic.
Mm,
You don't have to believe in
sure.
some other story. I think that yeah, she will learn to, as you said, to find it in another way.
Hmm, that's fascinating. Um, what is the response been? I'm curious to the film, especially, you know, do you find different responses depending on obviously not only the age of who's watching and who they are, but also like whether they went through a divorce themselves or they are parents who have, you know, gone through divorce? Like, have you been able to suss that out and see the other differences in how people respond based on their own experience?
Well, for sure it's not a polemic film, or I like it. People are not writing me to say, oh, that was so bad.
Right, we hate you. It's so, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
no,
that's good.
no. So I had a really good response, and I feel really privileged that I have that I've been able to meet some people in festivals, and to have also like this link that we have now with the Instagram or Messenger, and a lot of people are writing me and telling me their story. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have divorced parents who are writing me, and it always touched me so much. And
Mm,
also, what I was really surprised to find is that the film is having the same impact in a lot of countries and different cultures. Um, a woman from Iran wrote me 2 weeks ago to tell me that it was her favorite Christmas movie, and that she really identify herself to the little girl,
mm,
and so it just yeah, it's surprising and really um, exciting for me to
mm.
see that. Well, I already know that we are kind of all the same, but,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just a new experience of that we just
Mm,
like, if you talk about family links, family relationship,
mm.
there's a lot of chance that a lot of human being will feel apply, will
Yeah,
identify
it will
themselves.
connect. Yeah, it will relate. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So,
Sure, that's so true. That's the power of film too, isn't it? That ability to empathize with
yeah.
what we see.
And I could say also that we just won a prize a week ago in Greece, and it was some teenager juries.
Oh,
Uh,
well.
so it was 20 kids from 13 to 17, and they gave us like best fiction short.
Hmm.
And the film also did great in some old festival where I know that it's like a really old jury. So I think
That's funny.
it, with the generations, it's okay too. They don't need to know the 80s to feel that, well, that it's something that they can connect to.
Yeah, there's a certain timelessness to it, and there's a certain universality to it that anyone can connect to, especially if you've had some form of separation, and which many of us have had in childhood. I'm curious, as you think about your future projects, Annie, but also more broadly about the industry. One of the things we focus on through our organization, through our nonprofit organization, Movie Karma, is inclusion, equity and representation in the industry. And I wondered, as a female filmmaker, as someone who's making projects that I would argue have some really interesting social resonance to them, like, how do you think about inclusion and equity in the industry and representation, and are there changes you'd like to see to make the industry more equitable and inclusive and so forth?
For sure, it's something that I find really important, more than important, necessary, essential.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
we are really lucky here in Quebec because the institutions that are giving money to produce the film, because it's mostly public system that finance the film in Quebec.
I wish we had that. Yeah.
Yeah, we are really lucky. It's not a perfect
Mhm.
system, but still we
Mhm.
have quite a lot of freedom. And now, since five
Mhm.
years, they are working really hard to try to make equity between women and male
Mhm.
director.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in the last oh god, I'm not sure that I know how to say that in English, but
A
there's
few years or
they
um,
they have some announce twice a year to say which film they will be held
oh,
to
cool. Okay.
finance.
Yeah, they
And the
announce
last
it.
one, yeah, this week, it was all female directors, um 10 female directors
Wow.
and no male directors. So
Wow.
I think that in Quebec, we are really lucky because, yeah, we really want to change things, and sometimes it just have to begin in this way of doing things. It's just like, okay, we'll give more space to female director because they didn't had enough during like the
Last
yeah
500 years. Yeah. Yeah.
100
Yeah.
years before. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with First Nations and
Yeah, people of color,
yeah,
LGBTQ, talent. Yeah,
exactly.
same thing. Sure, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm quite proud of that from my country, my province, and for sure, like the film that I'm writing right now, the feature fiction, is story of two women, one in her 40s and one in her 60s, and I think that I want to see the the imagination of women more and more on screen, and I'm sure that it's what will happen. And
Hmm.
yes, it's like I would not feel comfortable to talk about something that I don't know. So what I know is to be a woman. I'm not black. I'm um,
You are who you are. Yeah, sure.
boring heterosexual.
Oh,
And but yeah, but I want to talk about what I know and to make place for the woman voices. And I
hmm.
hope that I'll be surrounded by other different voices from everywhere. I think that
Hmm.
um yeah, as I said, the most important thing in creation, it's singularity, and I want to see different people surrounding me in this field of seeing what you have in your mind and in your heart.
Hmm. Yeah, beautifully said. And I do think you can only speak from your own story, and having more people be able to share their stories, especially women, is a really exciting thing because we haven't seen that for obviously most of cinema's history. The last part we have here for you, Annie, is just a quick, what we call rapid fire question. So just to see what comes to mind.
Okay,
No
let's
pressure. So the first question we have for you is, if you could have any super ability or super skill, like a superhero, wondering what skill would you want to have or ability would you want to have?
Oh, uh, uh, I would like to live longer, I guess.
Nice answer.
Yeah, I love life, so maybe not eternal, but yeah,
Yeah,
something longer.
longer, same, yeah, longer and healthier, I guess, right?
Yeah. Is it an ability?
Um,
I'm not even sure that it's an ability.
is it an, yeah, no, that would count. I mean, if you could be eternal, well, yeah, the whole Marvel
Yeah,
movie,
perfect health. A perfect
perfect
health
health.
would
Yeah,
be
sure.
perfect for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a skill. No, that'd be an ability. Good answer. No, and do you have, is there someone you really admire that you want to mention? Someone, a role model, someone you look up to?
Um, I do. I could say, well, because I have to answer very fast. Okay, Agnès Varda.
Hmm. Oh, good. Okay, good answer.
Yeah,
Um,
she has a great career, and yeah, I would. Oh, I would have said Nelson Mandela,
oh,
and it
amazing.
would, yeah, it would have been more deep. But in cinema, yeah, Agnès Varda.
Hmm.
I'm not able
Nice.
to answer fast. I'm sorry. I'm just
No, that was very fast. We often stump folks on these. So the last one I have for you is maybe a little easier. Wondering if you could go back to when you were a child, to when you were growing up, and tell yourself one thing at that time when you were younger. What would you tell yourself, and why would you tell yourself that one thing?
I think that I would told me, hey, nothing is really important. Just play.
Right. Oh.
Was really I was an anxious, not anxious, no, not anxious. I was a really
Hmm.
mm, I was thinking about deep things all the time.
You're just very serious in your head. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Mm.
uh, like I had a lot of fun, but I think that I thought life was too serious, and it's just like it's some kind of a short game that you have to play and have fun.
I love that. I relate to that so much. Yeah, I feel like in my adulthood I've been relearning how to play and getting back to the 8-year-old version. And that's such a good answer. Yeah, I think more of us adults should try to do that more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We should keep
Um,
our little inner kid.
Inner kid alive. Yeah, I love that. Well, this was a pleasure. Again, our guest today, Annie St-Pierre. The film is like the ones I used to know. It's now Oscar eligible. It had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. Congratulations, Annie, on all success
Well,
with the
thank
film. It's a
you,
really powerful film, and thank you so much again for joining us. It was a pleasure having you
thank
on.
you, Jared. It was a pleasure.